Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Be Like Christ. If you were with us yesterday, you'll know I forgot my camera and memory card in another country, and so I'll have those back in a couple days. But for now, I think we're just going to do audio instead of me trying to hold my camera up and my arm getting tired and shaky as I film the video. So I think you'll be all right. No one will miss my face that much. We have, of course, our PDF, which has all the information that we need on it, and you can download it at tobelikechrist.com, and there's a link in the description. So let's take a look at our first section. Who is the key judge that we're going to talk about in chapter 11? Well, it's a guy named Jephthah. We talked about Tola and Jair last time, now Jephthah. And this story really picks up where the last chapter left off. But before we talk about that, let's talk about when. When did these events happen in history? Most scholars place the period of the Judges between 1450 and 1000 BC. Leading up to Judges 11, the Ammonites had oppressed Israel for 18 years, and God allowed that to happen because the Israelites were disobedient to him. Now take a look at our map. Where did the events of Judges 11 take place geographically? Most of Judges 11 centers around the land of Gilead. Gilead, as you'll see, is on the east side of the Jordan River, and Gad's land and the southern part of Manasseh's territory over on that side of the river was included in this region of Gilead. The lands of Edom, Moab, Ammon, and the lands of the Ammonites are also central to the story of Judges 11, and these were all lands on the east side of the Jordan River. Now, for our characters. Who are the key players in this chapter? Number one, a group of people, the Ammonites. They're kind of the bad guys here. They, quote, crushed and oppressed the people of Israel, and they wanted to take Israel's land as their own. Jephthah was a mighty man from the region of Gilead. He was the son of a prostitute, and I mention that because it's going to factor into his life and how his life plays out. And then Jephthah's daughter is our third character. This was Jephthah's only child who became the victim of a foolish vow that her father made. As we look over to our second page and we talk about our outline, I've broken this chapter down into 3 sections. The first one being verses 1 through 11. Jephthah is called to lead Israel. So Jephthah, as we mentioned, was a man from Gilead. He was a mighty warrior, but he had kind of been run out of his homeland in Gilead because he was the son of a prostitute. So he was looked down on. He lived during that time of kind of his exile. He lived in the land of Tob, and the text tells us that he made friends with worthless fellows, so he didn't have the best associates. But when the Amorites made war with Israel, which we kind of introduced in chapter 10, the men of Gilead begged Jephthah, knowing that he was a mighty warrior, to come back and to lead their army. So all of a sudden, things have changed. They see Jephthah as a valuable man. They promised that he would be the leader. They would make him the leader of all of Gilead if he managed to defeat the Ammonites. And so Jephthah accepted this offer, and he returned to help Israel. Okay, and so now our second section, verses 12 through 28. Jephthah sends messengers to the Ammonites. Jephthah dispatched some messengers to the king of the Ammonites, asking him why he was intent on making war with Gilead. Now the king responded that he was just taking back the land that Moses and the Israelites stole from his ancestors when they came out of Egypt. So he said, when Moses and the Israelites wandered in the wilderness and they came up into our land, they took our land, and so then I have a right now to take it back. But that wasn't true, and Jephthah replied by correcting the Ammonites' king's history. Israel had not launched any kind of unprovoked attack on Moab or Ammon to take their land when Moses led the people out of the wilderness and up into the promised land. The Israelites actually went around the land of Edom and Moab because they were relatives of the Israelites when they moved north to the east side of Jordan and were coming up into the land that God promised to give them. The Israelites did conquer land belonging to the Amorites, right? Not the Ammonites, but the Amorites. But Jephthah said that the Ammonites, they didn't have any legitimate claim to that land, so that evidently wasn't their issue. Furthermore, Jephthah argued that the king's claim on the land was weak, even if it was legitimate, because the disputed land had belonged to Israel for 300 years, and nobody had made an issue of it, in that time. So, it doesn't seem like this was really the reason for the Ammonites wanting to start this war, but it was their excuse. So Jephthah responded with this correction of the king's history, but the king of Ammon, he wouldn't listen to Jephthah. He was intent on making war anyway. And now section 3, definitely the most famous part of this chapter. Verses 29 through 41, Jephthah's vow, Jephthah's foolish vow. Jephthah made a vow to the Lord that if God would give him victory over the Ammonites, he would sacrifice the first thing that he saw from his household when he returned from the battle. Okay? So Jephthah then went to this battle, and he met the Amorites on the battlefield, and God gave Israel the victory. After the war, as Jephthah was approaching his house, coming home, his daughter came out to meet him with music and dancing and celebrating him being home and probably also his victory. But of course, upon seeing her, he remembered his vow, and he tore his clothes in mourning. He explained his vow to his daughter, and shockingly, I don't think I would have done this, she agreed that he needed to keep his word to the Lord. So she asked her father for 2 months to, quote, go up and down on the mountains and weep for her virginity. So Jephthah agreed to this. He gave her these 2 months where she went with her companions and did this weeping. And when the 2 months were complete, she returned to her father, and he, quote, did with her according to his vow. So, everybody gets to the end of this chapter, and the text doesn't explicitly say that he offered his daughter as a burnt offering to the Lord, and so there's a lot of debate. Did he do it? Did he not do it? Is it possible that he kept his vow in some other way, like maybe she was just dedicated to the Lord, and she never married, and not that he actually sacrificed her, but she was just kind of dedicated to the Lord in some unique way. People have made cases and debated this for years and years and years. In my opinion, just reading the text seems to me to indicate that he actually sacrificed her. Now, I think we should make it clear that God never endorsed this, right? There's no recognition of God, or there's no explicit endorsement of this by God. And there's, I think, a difference between Jephthah carrying this vow out and God actually being pleased with it. Because never anywhere in the Bible do we ever see God being pleased or commanding human sacrifice, ever, to my knowledge. And I'm pretty sure my knowledge is accurate on that. So, if he went through with this and offered her, I don't think it's something that was pleasing to God. So why is this story in the Bible? It kind of ends in this train wreck of a way. I think it's in the scriptures because it's showing us just the mess of religious confusion that was Israel at this time, right? And the imperfections of its people, of its leaders, of just... It's just a nation that isn't thinking out its actions, and that's kind of here displayed in this vow that this one man makes. And so that's kind of my understanding of it. It's just to display the dumpster fire that Israel has been and would continue to be during this period of the judges, right? So I don't know if that's what we're supposed to take away from it. That's kind of what I take away from it. It's a small example of just the mess of the entire nation. So for the application section, this one is pretty obvious. Be careful with your words and the promises that you make. Speaking impulsively and not considering the potential consequences of your commitments is a recipe for disaster, as we just observed. So let me know down in the comments. Maybe you've heard this debate before. Maybe you sit on one side or the other. Let me know if you have an opinion on it. I'd be interested to hear it. right now, I think he did sacrifice her, but I don't think God was happy about it. So, yeah, that's the book of Judges. That's chapter 11 of Judges, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow for something a little more encouraging.